I had an intro all planned out, but then I completely forgot what the intro was gonna be. Isn't that just like typical?
Yeah. So my name's Gigabytes, and your name is
My name's Kaido, and this is Coast Town, the podcast that records twice a year for no particular reason.
exactly. So, all right. First topic coming out swinging.
Yeah,
What
I hear you've got a topic prepared. Is this true?
I have a million topics prepared. Okay.
Okay.
So teach me about Neon Genesis Evangelion. What is it about? What'd you think of it? What is it?
Oh yeah. I feel like this is a pretty important topic for the world in general. My intimate analysis of Neon Genesis Evangelion.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, I recently watched the whole thing on Netflix. Sue me if you want. I don't care. It was the easiest way to watch it.
We'll
There's
get into
no.
that later.
We'll get into that
Anyway.
later, sure. Okay, so I watched it on Netflix. Uh, okay, so my take might be a little bit more negative than you might be expecting, and this
Okay.
probably is going to lead to some angry Twitter tweets against me. But
Okay.
I felt like overall, the show is basically like a four-part character study, psychological
Okay.
character study of like four, tropes of anime, which is actually really interesting. That's probably the best part of the show. The other kind of nonsensical, like Christian symbolism part, um, I feel like other shows have done better. But the psychological character part, I don't think there are any characters better written than Ava in the whole of anime. Uh, okay, that's like my two-sentence take. What's your response?
I agree with everything you said. There's no problems there.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
moving on. No, I'm just
Wait,
kidding.
wait, wait, wait. Yeah, so yeah, I agree with that. And the I feel like the Christian symbolism having no meaning. I feel like that's just anime. Like it's done so much. Like I've been used to that because oh my god, everything comes back to Death Note. But when when I first read Death Note, okay, and I saw the cross on the cover, like the show has nothing to do. Like there's tons of like gothic and Christian imagery that just have nothing to do with the actual manga or slash show. So I think that's just something that anime does.
Yeah, and it's weird because Ava came out in like the mid '90s, but the show's well, Death Note was a manga like in the mid to late 2000s, and also like a manga like Monster. Monster has so much Christian symbolism in it. They like reference particular verses from the Bible and stuff, but that doesn't really end up meaning anything. Like I just recently finished reading like 180 chapters of Monster, and it's really good. The mystery and stuff is really good. But I feel like again, the whole symbolism and Christian connection just kind of is a trail that leads nowhere. It just exists because it sounds cool to say like and the monster rose from the deep and ate all the people of the village or whatever. It doesn't end up being connected to anything.
So it's kind of like the Pulp Fiction Quentin Tarantino thing. He just says a Bible verse for no reason.
Yeah, I this is funny. I've watched every single Quentin Tarantino movie except Pulp Fiction.
Okay.
So when and Pulp Fiction is the one that like 90% of Tarantino references are made for, or like are
Mm-hmm.
made from, and I've just never seen it. So I just always pretend that I know what they're talking about. So that's what I'm gonna do here. Like, yep, yeah, I know what you're talking about.
I mean, that's all you really need to know. Samuel L. Jackson says a Bible verse and shoots a dude.
Yeah, and like that meme with John Travolta who looks lost and is like,
Yeah,
just
that's
walks
a gr-
around. That's
yeah, that's a
me when
great
people
part.
talk about Pulp Fiction. So there's that.
See, it's meta.
Yeah.
There you go.
Also, I felt like this is actually interesting because you know that manga Fire Punch, which
Yeah,
we've
I
both
love
been
it.
reading in the past week.
Yeah, I haven't
Um,
finished it, but I love it. It's very good.
yeah. The ending of that is kind of similar to the ending of Evangelion. There's like unnecessarily complicated symbolism.
Yeah.
I don't know what specifically it is about the Japanese oeuvre that lends itself to this, but it seems like it's a common trait that they just throw in this Christian symbolism for no particular reason. I'm assuming that everything that did that after Ava is ripping off Ava, but I don't know what Ava is ripping it off from.
What does uva mean? That sounds like
It's
uvulation.
like
Like,
no, I was just messing around. It basically means like the Japanese condition. It's fine.
okay, I think your Evangelion, whatever you just said was good because analysis, I guess, was good. I agree. It's like, um, yeah, there's the most. It's like some of the most depth characters in anime. Some of the. Why am I
But at
autistic?
this,
Okay,
but oh, that's a good question. We can
okay,
debate another
well,
time.
go on.
Also, another thing. Even though they're the probably the deepest characters in anime, I do actually have some problems with the characters in Ava.
What's the problems?
My problems are like if you've watched any kind of normal media at all, these tropes basically exist in every single show. And just by just including them in anime, that's kind of how I feel like a lot of the stuff that people say is great anime ends up being is just like stuff from other mediums that don't normally, are in anime. So just by having something different, for example, like the directing of Ava, right? Ava's directed really differently than most shows. Like there's hard cuts, there's like these long takes, right? And we just recently talked about how you don't like movies with long takes in them, didn't we?
Yeah, well, I was
Yeah.
talking about this French film, but I don't think that
Yeah.
applies.
No,
But
I totally think that applies because most of Ava, except for the parts where they're fighting the actual angels, the rest of it is just like this weird art house movie. And then it cuts to like them fighting a beast or some angel or something. And I'm not like so knowledgeable about Ava that I can just quote like, oh, this angel represents this or whatever. Like I don't know about all that kind of stuff, but the whole like long cut dialogue scenes and them like cutting from one scene halfway through someone talking and all those weird cuts, those are like tried and true indie movie or like art house movie, not tropes, but like methods that people have been using in non-blockbuster movies for a long time. So when people say like, and this generally applies to other anime that people say are really good, they always say this anime is really good because it incorporates traits of other mediums. So my thought is like when you have a movie that you say is really good, you don't normally say like, oh, this horror movie is really good because it incorporates traits from comedy movies or whatever. Like I feel like that kind of reduces the point of the medium in general. Um, like for example, Shinichiro Watanabe when he's directing Carol and Tuesday, I felt like some of the episodes of Carol and Tuesday are extremely well directed, and it's because they kind of work like movies in that sense, and that's he's kind of known for this directing episodes like movies, but I don't feel like just because it's directed like a movie, it makes it necessarily better than other shows, if that makes sense.
okay, so yeah, I see what you're saying. The thing about okay, I think the reason that people praise okay, so the reason that people praise anime and they're like, "Oh, this anime incorporates techniques from other mediums." It's like, well, the reason they're saying that is because they're saying that to say that this was more well thought out and it's anime and I like anime, so I want to see more filmic things done in anime. It's you're getting that perspective from the anime fan because they just want to see really good like art house stuff done in anime. So when that stuff from other mediums is brought into anime, they're naturally going to be they're naturally going to gravitate towards it and use it as a jumping off point to recommend to people. That's why everybody recommends Cowboy Bebop because it uses a lot of non uh western, I guess, ideas in it, you know.
Yeah, and where Cowboy Bebop like uses more like mainstream type cuts, I would say, uh, Ava's like totally on the next level. Like they just cut just random jump cuts sometimes, which is very like indie movie esque. That's what they do in the art house movies, and they have like these long ass takes. It's, I mean, one of the longest takes in all of anime probably is that elevator scene.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't see that in a normal like mainstream movie. That's definitely like one of the, like, I don't know if you remember, but there's this movie where Casey Affleck dresses up in a ghost sheet, like he's wearing a sheet over his head for the whole movie, and he's a ghost, and he like watches over his
I
ex-wife, and
I
there's
know
a
what you're
scene where
talking
she's
about.
yeah, there's a scene where she's eating pie,
I know
which is
this.
like
Yeah.
famously like 3 or 4 minutes long or something. And this that elevator scene was just like that, and that's probably about as art house as you can get, because I'm pretty sure that like won at Sundance or premiered at Sundance, and Sundance is all about these arty movies. So, that's what I was going with that.
Okay, but like, see, the thing is, um, the long. Okay, maybe I don't. Maybe I'm not an expert, but the one art house movie that really like turned me off was that movie, Love on Netflix by that film maker. I think his name is Gustave Noel. He's a French guy. French film thing. It was a moving picture show from France. Yes, that's what I'm trying to say. So the problem I had with that movie was like every single shot was like 2 minutes long or something. That was the it was too overbearing. Like, and the plot was like barely there. So it was like,
Yeah, I mean, plot barely being there is kind of like it's like a tried and it's a very old art movie trope. It's like, but when you ask somebody what happened in this particular art movie, they're like, well, I don't know, nothing really happened, but but there was some stuff. That's
well,
That's how I
hmm,
feel about this. It's like, when you're talking about love having these long takes, like one of the famously people say like either they love it or hate it type movies that has super long takes that also happens to be mainstream is like Blade Runner, where there's like
I've never seen it.
barely any plot. He just hunts down one robot over the course of like 2.5 hours, and there's a scene where he's like sitting in a like facing a monitor, and he just says enhance, enhance, enhance for like 4 minutes or something with no cuts. That's a super famous scene, and people either use it as an example of why they got bored watching the movie or why they love the movie so much. It's like it's just so slow and atmospheric. Don't get me wrong though. I do think Ava's like either the best directed show of all time or one of the best directed shows of all time. Um, it depends on what style you like, I guess. You can't really compare it straight up to other stuff, but it's between that or something more out there. Like not then it goes past TV anime. Like I think that's one of the things that Ava does best. You can't even tell that it's a TV anime. It's that well done.
Yeah. Well, see, what I like about Ava is that the long shots are used sparingly. Well, okay, they're used to have impact. Like, not every shot is like minutes long. Like, if a shot is super long, it's there for a reason and it means something. And for me, when you have shots that are like all over your movie that are just super long, it kind of dampens the impact of the long shots. Like, not every scene in Ava is like the elevator scene or the movie theater scene or the scene where he's killing Kaoru. Like, not every shot's like that. Like in the show.
Yeah. Um, but I think that's just a style thing, though, right? Because even in Ava, like half the episode is them fighting an angel or whatever, and there are very quick cuts in that, like to show the action and whatnot, and then they cut back to the dialogue, and then it takes it much slower after that. But if you're dealing with subject matter that's more like just dialogue intensive, like one of the movies that people said was really boring from last year was that Alfonso Cuarón movie that's on Netflix. I forget what it's called, but it's like black and white and in Spanish, and that has some of the like longest takes of any movie that came out last year. I would say is like there's a tracking shot where we just follow like this one like house worker lady. She's like the main character for like minutes and minutes as she's like walking around the house and helping everybody with their stuff, with no cuts, and like that, like you said, it's there for a reason. It's to like show all the things that she does and stuff. But yeah, maybe if you, I don't know about that one guy that you were talking about that who did the French stuff on Netflix, but I feel like if you use long shots with a purpose, they definitely can have a lot of impact.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm generalizing too much because for one, I'm not that experienced in live action film at all, and I especially not arty type stuff at all. So I mean, you know, I'm just basing this off of this recent movie that I saw. I'm sure I've seen, like, I think you say black and white. I saw this one black and white movie one time that was, like, I think controversial in terms of reception. It was like, I remember it was this dude. He was on this dusty like town or something, and the whole film was in black and white. I can't remember what it's called though. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, and even it's not just like an old thing because there are plenty of black and white movies that have more exciting cuts and they just move around a lot more. Like some of the old Hollywood blockbusters that are in black and white, they don't have super long takes. They kind of just cut between the action like you would expect a normal modern day movie to cut. Maybe not a normal modern day movie because nowadays they cut way too much, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. I'm going to propose something that is like wild. I think black and white movies should become more of a thing because if you can't use color right, then just make it black and white and black and white. Because I hate the way that most movies are colored. So like, just remove the color and it'll just make it look cooler.
What's an example? Like, what's an example of a movie that you hate the color of?
Okay, let's see. I can think of like Transformers, Marvel, every Marvel movie, uh,
Yeah.
except Thor Ragnarok and Guardians of the Galaxy and Spider-Man Homecoming, maybe. Let's see. Inception, The Matrix, Titanic,
Well, the coloring, the
Avatar.
coloring of the coloring of the Matrix has like a purpose though. Like when they're in the Matrix, it's way more green than when they're in real life. That's like they did that on purpose. But do you just not like that gritty aesthetic? You just like more colorful stuff? That's what I'm picking up from this.
Yeah, well, basically, what I'm trying to say is I hate the way every major movie's colored nowadays, kind of, because I don't know. I just like huge, saturated, bright colors. That's
I
what I
see.
like.
But what if you're the stuff that you're talking about doesn't really warrant having super saturated bubblegum colors?
Well, then make it black and white.
What if it's just real life? The real life isn't black and white.
Well, I'm not here to watch real life.
Well, I feel like a lot of the indie movies of recent have been pushing towards a more like realistic aesthetic. Um, like there was this one movie called Boyhood where this like they made a movie with this real
Yeah,
life boy who like aged 12 actual years over the shooting of the movie.
I want to see
Um, I,
that. I've heard of it.
I watched it. It's not like that great. It's more like a technically it's technically very good because they keep things consistent and like the actors are the same and they actually look like they've aged over the course of the movie. But other than that, I feel like I don't know if it's actually all that worth watching. I mean, it's a good coming of age story, but like there's so many of those.
Yeah. Okay, maybe I was being too harsh with my color statement, but like, um, I don't know. I just when I when I look at them, I don't know. I feel like when people try to make movies look real, like it's sometimes it just becomes boring to me. Like oh, here I'll think of the best example. I'll think of the greatest example of all time, Godzilla 2014. That movie, it has none of the charm of any of the Godzilla movies, and it looks boring and awful, and it looks like it was just trying to make the most money, and it has no soul.
Well, this might actually be a fun thing to talk about because I have a friend who's super into like old school Godzilla tokusatsu stuff. And the new Godzilla movie that came out this year, he loved it. He was like, he was just only talking about the monsters. He was like, there was this monster and this monster did this, and that's so like accurate to the shows. And I went to watch it, and it was like some clusterfuck of animation and horrible writing to me. So I just didn't get it at all. But apparently the old school fans loved it. So the 2014 Godzilla movie did neither of those things. It didn't have a coherent story, nor did it give fan service to the people who actually like Godzilla. So at least they're making progress on that part a little bit.
Yeah, here, let's rewind. I'm gonna have to stop you right there. You said writing. That does not matter in a Godzilla movie. Okay, let me rephrase that. The first one, 1954 one, has a point. The rest of them are just like we just want to see monsters kill each other. Like all the old like King Kong versus Godzilla is one of my favorites. Like the old one, not well the new one's not out, so I can't like it, but it's because like the King Kong suit looks stupid and the Godzilla suit looks funny and they just beat each other up and and the plot is like entertaining cuz it's like just a bunch of it's just goofy. It doesn't take itself seriously. That's why it's fun. And I need to see the new one cuz people say that like it has more monster fights and cheesiness, and that's what the fans like basically.
I mean, it does have more monster fights. Like the audience that I saw it with seems to clearly come from the same place that you're coming from, because there were literal parts in the movie when they were explaining the plot when they just started laughing, and I was like, okay, so we know what's going on here. At least we're self aware that this is actually horrible writing. And we're
Yeah,
not pretending that this is something like super serious, like the dude from Breaking Bad dying in a nuclear reactor in the first 10 minutes or whatever.
yeah. Well, his wife died, but well, whatever. It doesn't matter. Anyways, yeah. That's the thing, though. Like
Wait, didn't he die too? He was only in like 10 minutes of the movie.
he was in 30 minutes. He died later, but his wife died at first.
Oh, well, it felt like I mean, as soon as he died, I completely lost interest in anything that was going on.
Yeah, for because me too, basically, because the plot was actually like kind of maybe like there might be something here, and then he dies, and his son is just not a good lead actor.
Was that movie also made by Roland Emmerich? I don't think so.
I don't know. I think it was made by Edward Norton, maybe. Or
What? That's the guy? No, I don't think that's.
is
Are
that
you
an
sure?
actor?
That's an actor. That's what I was wondering.
Wait,
Because
hold
I
on.
remember the '97 one was made by Roland Emmerich, and that one was just straight up horrible. Like
I've never seen that.
there's comedy bits, like there's legit just like I think 60% of the actors are just comedy actors. Like it has the dude from Ferris Bueller's Day Off and the Alan from Two and a Half Men, and they kind of just make jokes about stuff while Godzilla's tearing through New York.
All right,
It's so weird.
I gotta put a pin because two new topics that I've wanted to talk about have just come up. I'm putting a pin in them for later, and we're gonna bring this up. This is foreshadowing. You just said 2.5 men, and I'm gonna have to psychoanalyze you on TV sitcoms in a minute. But I've just thought of my other I've just thought of my other favorite Godzilla movie, which is Godzilla versus Hedorah. And the reason that I like that is because the plot is so stupid. It's like the dude, he goes into a nightclub and he all of a sudden, for no reason, just starts seeing all the people in the nightclub as fish. And then the Hedorah slime comes down the stairs, and there's a cat that meows at it, and then like Godzilla is just somewhere fighting.
Wait, Godzilla's in the nightclub?
No, that would have been great. I'm surprised they didn't do that.
They should
No,
have just given Godzilla sunglasses and a fedora and been like, "Go for it."
no, Godzilla's outside trying to look for Hedorah, and then when they fight, it's like Godzilla's stumbling over, and I don't know if it's choreographed or not, but that's what makes it so funny. It's so funny.
Oh,
It's so
I mean,
good.
I kind of wish they'd done the new movie with those suits, just because it would have been so funny to see Hollywood like spend $100 million on a movie and just have some guy in a suit as the main character. That would have been great.
That's what people want though. Like if they did that, the fans would actually be happy. That's the whole point. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, but this is okay. We're switching topics. We're taking a hard left turn here. Okay, here we go. Here we go. Super serious topic. Are you ready? Here we
yeah.
go. Okay, so every single movie franchise that they're making is catering towards like this millennial, like 30 something audience with like disposable income and stuff. My problem with that is at some point all these old millennial fucks are gonna die, and then who are you catering to then? Because we're at this point where no original media is actually being made. We're just in like this recycling been, and we're just going through the same shit again and again, and hoping that it makes more and more money each time, which it kind of has. Like the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies made decent money, and then like the new Spider-Man movies are making mad bucks. Um, but at the same time, it's like they're just doing the same stories again and again. At what point are we gonna like fall off this bubble where we can't just recycle old shit anymore and you actually have to make new stuff? Like Spider-Man didn't exist before 19 whatever. Are we just gonna make Spider-Man stuff until the 30th century or whatever? Is this it for creativity? Is there gonna be 1,000 years of Spider-Man movies and we don't get anything else new ever?
Um,
End rant. End rant.
yeah, no, I agree 100%. This is something that I think about a lot. But the thing is though, it depends on. Am I talk? Okay, sorry, I didn't see the green thing. The thing is, it depends though. Like, if you look in history, right? So, okay, never mind. Scrap that. So,
Have you taken up smoking recently? What's going on?
no, I haven't. But I mean, it depends on where you look. It's like, I mean, there's always going to be new creative stuff coming out. It's like, I think hindsight is a powerful thing because if you look back, like there was probably always this going on. Well, not really. Never mind. That's a stupid point. I don't know what I'm talking about.
Just admit that the whole establishment is creatively bankrupt. They can't think of anything else. They're just milking the same old bloody teats for billions of imaginary papers, and that we're just gonna keep getting Star Wars for 1,000 years.
Well,
Uh,
let's go back to the '80s, right? It's because it seems like there was original stuff there, right? It's like, you had Goonies, you had Ghostbusters, Terminator, and Star Wars, and then that's the basis of everything that we're getting now. It's just a million other of those.
oh yeah. Oh wait. Oh wait. Oh wait. But you forgot the biggest blockbuster original movie franchise of the 2000s, aka Fast and Furious.
Oh my god.
There is that. I mean, some people unironically like Fast and Furious. I like one of them. I like Tokyo Drift. I think that's like I've only watched two of them, and they're both fine. But I haven't seen like the end game Fast and Furious stuff. I feel like it's at this point, if I jump in, it's gonna be like, are we in a different world? Because I've watched a
Yeah.
couple trailers, and it's like, Dwayne the Rock Johnson is jumping out of a car to catch somebody who's in the air, and then landing in another car, and then starts driving it or some shit. At
Dude, I
that
hate
point,
that
it's like,
guy.
why? What did he
That's
do to you?
that's mean. I just don't like him. Okay, this is gonna sound so mean. I just don't like him. It's just like how I don't like Robin Williams. I don't know.
Oh my god, man! This is why I wish Matt was here. We could like go over the whole Robin Williams thing and
I
prove that
don't
you're
know.
wrong.
I don't know. I don't know. I When I look at Robin Williams, I'm just like, it's just some white dude.
What?
I don't know. I don't know. He's just some white guy. I don't know.
I mean, like 80% of all actors are just some white guy or
That's
white
how I
girl.
feel. I'm just like, it's just some human. Who cares? I just want cartoons.
This is actually maybe the dumbest thing you've ever said. Like this is like saying, "Oh, my whole family. Who cares? They're just some humans that will they're born and then they'll die. What's the point? I should just murder them all now. Oh my god, no, please, Jig, no, don't kill your family.
I mean, okay, I was about to say you're not wrong, but that is extremely wrong. But I don't know. It's just like,
Maybe we should
okay,
draw. Kostan does not condone the murder or decapitation of anybody. That's it. Okay, that's
all
a
right,
public service announcement. Now back to your regularly scheduled podcast,
all right. Here's the thing. I'm not interested in anything that I'm not interested in. All right, this sounds
which
very close.
apparently which apparently includes close relatives and or people who share your DNA. But okay.
This is okay. let me retract this. Okay.
Oh, okay. Now that you said zzz, I have another rant that I want to go on. Why is everyone now switching from vinyl and record nostalgia to now like cassette tape nostalgia? Cassette tapes suck. They're really bad. There's a reason they existed for like 10 years and then never existed ever again. They're horrible linear media that makes no sense. I have no idea why people are on cassette tape nostalgia. Why?
It's
It's
the
so dumb.
meme. It's the meme. It's like, hey,
No, no, it's not. But that's the thing, though. It's not. They're making cassette players with Bluetooth, so you can listen to. That's like
wait,
mason jars with
hold on.
handles on the side. Like,
No, I'll defend this because if you're having an old car, you need that for the aux.
no, no, you don't understand. I'm talking about a Sony Walkman that you put in your pocket that now
Oh, well,
has Bluetooth, and you stick a
that's
the cassette tapes used to skip. Imagine that you're walking. If you bumped something, they would just skip because it's so bad. Why? Why do you want? And the audio quality is worse. CDs have better audio quality. Vinyls have better audio quality. It's the lowest point of audio that has ever been, piped into human ears. And for some reason, we're relitigating this stuff for no particular. Okay, I'm done.
rest in peace, Robin Williams. Okay, that was mean. I'm sorry, but you're right. The cassette tapes are retarded. But also, okay, let me retract my. It's just so guys.
The sickness is the world trying to eliminate you from the gene pool. I swear to God.
Anyways, so I don't know. Okay, I think it's because I saw Robin Williams in RV, and I hate that movie.
This is like watching Michael Jordan. I mean, there's no point making a sports reference, so I'll just censor myself right there.
No. Wait. Make the sports reference.
This is like watching Michael Jordan on the Washington Wizards and being like, "Hey, this guy's ass. Why do people like him?"
Well, I know that Michael Jordan's supposed to be good, so I got that sports reference, kinda. He
Okay.
plays basketball.
You play. Oh, okay. Do you want to do this whole like real world meets internet thing? You said you wanted me to teach you how to play basketball.
Yeah, sure. Teach me what basketball is.
Okay. Wait. So, are you sure you want to do this?
Yeah.
Okay. So, how much do you know already? You know you put the ball in the hoop and stuff, right?
So you put the ball in the hoop, you dribble. There's fouls if you go out of bounds? Question mark.
I think if you go out of bounds, the other team gets the ball. And
Okay,
there's
so they get.
fouls for if you like, physically contact a player in a way that you're not supposed to, like if you hit their hand or if you hit their body. You're only supposed to really touch the ball. You're not really supposed to hit the other players. But yeah.
Okay, so what is the stick? Because you have to stop dribbling to turn. So what is the rules on that?
No, you don't have to stop dribbling to turn. You can just like, well, I mean, in like the 50s when it was just white dudes playing basketball, it was a completely different game, but it's evolved a lot since then. So now people do like between the legs moves and like spin moves and stuff, all while keeping their dribble alive. So it's fine. I should probably tell you that once you stop dribbling, you can't start dribbling again. You have to pass it to someone,
Oh,
or shoot it.
okay. That's what I was wondering. So 3 points is the far line, 2 points is the middle one, and 1 point is if you just did. Yeah.
Yeah, there's 3 points is the far line. Then everything from the far line to the rim is just 2 points. 1 point is only if you get fouled and you're shooting free throws.
Okay. So so you said only white people play basketball in the 50s. How did this become like a black thing?
Well, people realize that black people are extremely good at basketball and also very tall. And they're like, actually, it was kind of cool because at first in the NBA or whatever, there were no black players at all, just like in every other sport because people are stupid. And then someone realized that, oh shit, if we get black players in, we can just win. So they just got one black guy and they're like, oh shit, he's really good. So then they started getting more black guys, and now 80% of the league is black. And, it's a meme now that if you're a white basketball player, you're kind of ass.
Yeah, that's yeah. I'm sorry. I don't. This is getting weirdly racial, but
I
but
mean, there,
yeah.
there was a movie in the 80s called White Men Can't Jump. So, I mean, it's a well-established cultural meme at this point, I think.
Okay. So, um, What else is there to know about basketball? Teach me.
Well, normally I play pickup outdoors. So in that, you don't even use the full court. You only use half the court. And when the other team misses, you take the ball outside the 3 point line, and then you start trying to score, and they play defense. And then if you miss, they get the ball, or you could rebound it, or they get the ball and then they start playing offense, and you play defense.
So
That's pretty much
defense.
it. Yeah.
So
Okay. What?
defense is when you're trying to not get the ball in the hoop.
Defense is when you're trying to stop the other people from getting the ball in the hoop.
Okay. So yeah, that's what I was trying to say. I think. Um. So this is going nowhere.
Yeah, this is like a pointless exercise
This
in
is stupid.
semantics. It's
Yeah.
like, okay,
You
you
throw the
know,
ball in the hoop. That's all there is
yeah,
to it. Yeah.
that's all there is to it. Yeah, and that's like saying in chess, the point is to kill all the opponent's pieces or whatever. It's
Yeah.
the equivalent of saying that. But yeah, I mean, the point of the game is that you can't argue that.
Anyways,
What are the topics you
so
put a pin in earlier that you want to bring up now?
uh, okay. So, do you like sitcoms?
Me, sitcoms?
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't watched a sitcom since 2012, so I don't know.
Okay. Wait. Wait. So you don't like them?
I don't really have. It depends on the sitcom, I guess. They're fine if they're running in the background.
So what is your opinion on Two and a Half Men and The Big Bang Theory? Because I need your opinion on these two shows.
Oh God. Okay. Well, first of all, I feel like they're targeting completely different audiences.
Okay.
Um, I don't know who Big Bang Theory is targeting, because I feel
Boomers.
like, is it? Because I feel like
Yes.
a lot of the people who watch Big Bang Theory are millennials,
No, they're
and
not.
Two and a Half Men targets boomers. I think
Yes. Also, yeah.
because a lot of the stuff they talk about on Two and a Half Men is like weirdly American specific stuff. Um, like there's this part, there's one episode. Okay, here we go. We're getting deep into Two and a Half Men lore. Here we go.
Okay.
Um, there's this episode in Two and a Half Men where Alan is talking about getting his dog to lick cheese off his nuts.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure that's like an arrestable offense in 90% of the world's countries. I don't understand why he talks about this, or why Chuck. Which is, it's funny because the person who made both shows is the same guy. Is that what you're trying to get at?
Oh, is it? I didn't know that.
Yeah, the executive producer of both shows is Chuck Lorre, who's like
Well, there you go.
famous for making sitcom shows. So there you go.
Well, they're both very similar in their awfulness. So I agree.
I feel like Two and a Half Men is worse than Big Bang Theory.
Oh, I think I hate Big Bang Theory the most, and this is
But you
what
forget that at halfway through Two and a Half Men, they just replaced Charlie Sheen with Ashton Kutcher.
Oh yeah, and he has like Jesus hair.
Well, I mean, he's always had Jesus hair since he became popular, but like now, they just he's a billionaire who has no money now, and he just lives with them, and they act like this is normal, and they kill Charlie Sheen off screen. That makes it 100% worse, just because of that.
Okay, yeah, Ashton Kutcher's another just some white guy I don't get. But the reason Big Bang Theory is so bad is because the whole show is okay. All right, we're gonna get into this. I hate nerds. All right, this
Wait. Say that again. Say that again real slow, okay? Give it a
I
second. Give it a second. It might actually
hate
kick in what you're trying to say. Do you have a mirror
nerds.
next to you somewhere? Maybe look in the
I
mirror.
also hate myself, so this is fine. Okay, all right. I am a self-hating nerd, but I'm gonna explain to you why
Have you seen the
nerds.
Boondocks? Have you seen the Boondocks?
Yes, I love the Boondocks. What
You're
if
like
I
Uncle What's his name? Is his name
Uncle
Uncle Rufus?
Ruckus?
Yeah, Ruckus. There you go.
I am Uncle Ruckus. That's perfect. So I hate nerds, and I'm gonna. Okay, my drugged out sister's interrupting now the podcast.
This is great. This is comedy gold.
Thank you, Paris. I love you too. Are you Are you okay? It was just a joke. We're doing a video. Are you okay?
Ladies and gentlemen, let's listen. She's on someone or something.
So you're drooling? Do you feel okay?
They put me on drugs, Ollie. They
Yeah.
put me
Put
on
me on
drugs.
drugs.
I know. This is all going on the internet.
I don't care. Hey, internet.
Hey.
My name's Paris. Bye.
That was so good. I mean, this is typical Gigabytes content at this point, right? Well, I mean, why did we expect anything different?
Pretty
Do you
much.
do you have like a gnome hidden in your drawer that you want to release at this point? Is there anything else?
I have children in my drawers. Anyways,
Oh,
so
maybe we should. Given what you just said, we shouldn't have gone down this road. People might
okay.
wonder why you have a drugged out person in your house. Now that you've said this,
She got her wisdom teeth taken out. People, audience, it's innocent. Okay.
okay. Just
Anyways,
had to check, since you just said my family are just some people. You have children in your drawer. I don't
listen,
know.
it's. I'm trying to make this funny. Okay, it's a meme. So,
Okay.
but seriously, here's why I seriously hate The Big Bang Theory. All right, so nerds in media have the weirdest representation for me because if you think of the 80s movie Revenge of the Nerds or whatever, the whole point, okay, the whole crux of the nerd archetype is like, by the way, when I say I hate nerds, I just hate movie nerds. That's all I'm talking about. I don't.
Then why do you
Yeah.
hate yourself? Are you a movie nerd?
Well, that goes deeper. But anyways, we're not gonna get in. That's just gonna
That's
be
not. Maybe that is something we should save for another day.
that's gonna be the Gigabytes Therapy podcast. But
Oh God.
anyways, so the
Oh. Okay. Well, they have those like online therapists that talk to you over voice chat. We should get one of those people.
probably. Anyways, so the reason I hate the nerd archetype is because there's this there's this like feeling of like, oh, they don't get the girl. So it's like they're the ones that are like, oh, you're supposed to be sympathetic towards them, but they always like sexually like basically assault the girl in a weird way. Like in Revenge of the Nerds, they like sneak into the girls like rooms and like take pictures of them or whatever, I think. And like this is a common thing. It's like, oh, I'm the nerd, I can't get the girl, but like so that gives me, so I'm the like the nice guy, so I can like just harass them and the audience will feel good for me. Like that's the whole, like I hate the whole nice guy thing, and that goes toe in toe with the nerds. So there's an episode of The Big Bang Theory where I think it's either the one of the dudes, I can't remember. Is there a black guy on that show?
No.
That there's the Indian
Well,
guy,
you've
right?
just outed yourself. Okay, continue.
Outed myself as what?
I don't even know anymore.
Okay. Anyways, so one of the dudes on the show who's not Sheldon
Okay.
is puts a camera in some. I think it's the Indian guy.
Okay.
There's the white girl.
Mm-hmm.
There's
There's actually a few white girls, but go on.
there's the main white guy. There's
It's funny
the
that there's no Asian guy on this show. I
yeah.
really feel like there's three white guys and an Indian guy. I mean, there's some
I
like
thought there was a
Sheldon is
black
like
dude.
the high, non-functioning autist, and then Leonard is like the reluctant nerd type guy, and then there's like a weird. I mean, there's a character that's basically. Oh, are you talking about like Howard? It's probably Howard that did it.
Yeah, he puts a camera in a girl's thing, and it's like, how are you so like these characters constantly are just awful people. They harass women, like I don't, and they're mean to women. Like I don't understand how. But then you're supposed to feel sympathy for them. I don't understand how you, and it's just because they're the nerd. Like it's just because society has said, oh, nerds don't get women, nerds aren't cool, so they have a pass to just be awful people, and then we can feel sympathy for them. That's the whole show, and then they lampshade it with awful writing.
I feel like the first thing you talked about, Revenge of the Nerds, that was just like an '80s trope. Because there's a lot of '80s movies that do that. They have this like sneaking into the girls' locker room type thing. Which if you do now, I'm pretty sure you just go to jail forever, which
No,
is
they
good.
still do it. that's in the Big Bang Theory all the time.
Let me explain the rest of what I was trying to say. How
Okay.
did that episode end up turning out, by the way? Because I feel like they have to play it on the trope at this point. Otherwise, it's just Chuck Lorre being a 75-year-old boomer.
Okay, I think the okay, very vague memory, but I think what the thing was like they literally just said, "Oh yeah, we're putting cameras in girls' things," but haha,
But
like
if that's the A story, there has to be some resolution at the end of the episode, right? Because that's how writing works.
I guess I don't know. My memory's very vague on this.
Shall we Google this? You talk more about it, and I'm gonna Google see if I can find it.
Okay, so all right, so well, we'll come back to that, I guess. So, and I'm not trying to you find it, and then we'll discuss it. But I'm also going to list also other reasons why I don't like Big Bang Theory. So, they constantly use reference humor, right? Like, I'm playing Skyrim ping pong, Lord of the like. There's a part where Sheldon's playing ping pong, and he's like, "We're gonna do a Lord of the Rings themed ping pong match and a Green Lantern themed Skyrim thing or whatever." It's just in hey boomers, while you're watching this stupid sitcom show that's awful, your kids might like ears perk up when they hear the Skyrim reference or whatever. That's what the whole show is. Did you find it yet?
No, I didn't find it. I mean, this is harder than it seems. You keep going, keep going.
Okay, so this like my name's Sheldon. You know that Green Lantern remake that they did? Bazinga! I hate it.
Okay, I give up. There's no way I can find this. This is too fake of a thing to go off of.
I'm a writer on the Big Bang, but see, it sounded real. Like I'm a writer on the Big Bang Theory now. I could do like it's that's all it is. It's like,
You
hey
know,
hey,
if you could do it, you probably should do it because it pays very well. The Writers Guild they pay very handsomely. You should look into this.
I actually I actually hate when people say that. Like I hate okay, I'm not actually like that. Like it takes skill to write on the Big Bang Theory, yada yada. I hate when people are like the stupid rap music. I hate it. I could rap, and then it's like okay, we'll try it then, and they're like. No, I'm above that. That's what every rap hater says. I hate that stuff.
Like you should write on it. Like I mean, this is a common criticism that many people have. It's like, oh, if you have a problem with the system, why don't you just be part of the system and change it? And this is actually okay. Here we go. Rant number 17 of this podcast. Here we go. Um, there's like two schools of thought, right? When it comes to changing any particular system, it's like either one, you can just demolish it. I feel like this is a lot of the conflict that ends up coming up in superhero movies. For example, I think Black Panther had this where like the villain guy wants to like destroy the whole world order and make something new, and then Black Panther's like, no, we can fix it or whatever. Do you get what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I get you.
It's like this common trope of like disassembling like everything and then putting it back together or just fixing it. And every single piece of media has the same take on it, which is like, yeah, don't just blow everything up and put it back together. We can just fix it or whatever. Like the resolution of every arc like that is always don't destroy the whole system. And I feel like this is kind of like subliminal programming to get people from rebelling and destroying the system is like just from birth make it so that every piece of media or anything that they relate to just has the hero trying to fix things from within, and then butting heads with like this bureaucratic system that doesn't want to change, and then the single second that they consider like, oh, maybe we should disassemble the system, um like they just get rejected and like put down by some other hero who's like, no, we can just fix things. We don't have to destroy everything. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but okay, I'm struggling to understand what that had to do with what I just said. So I don't
I
understand the
don't. I
point.
don't even remember what you said anymore. This is. I'm just making rants to make rants at this point. What were you
Okay.
saying?
Okay, so what I was saying was like, so I've heard people who are like rock fans, let's say, who are like, they romanticize like the technical prowess of playing the guitar and the drums and assembling a band, and they look at like, let's say someone who just raps on a beat that someone else made, and they're like, well, that's so like I could do that, like that's nothing. And it's like, I'm not saying that you have to be able to make the art to criticize it, but it's when you just look from the when you're from the outside looking in and you just assume that there is no skill required to do an art form, you are just being ignorant. Like you're just being closed minded. Like, so what I would say to someone who's like doesn't even understand, like let's say hip hop for example, like if you don't even understand it and you just listen to like what you just listen to Drake or whatever it's on the radio, and you're like, yeah, it's so no substance, surface level. I could do it. I would say, okay, we'll do it then. And then when they try to do it, it's always awful because if you're just assuming that an art form takes no skill, then you probably just don't have that skill. You know what I'm saying?
I finally figured out how what I was saying related to what you were saying. It's actually the same thing that you just said right now. So it's like what I was trying to say is when people have a problem with something, they ask you to like, or what have a problem with something you said, they're like, oh, if you could do it better, then like just go in there and fix it or whatever. For example, it's like maybe I don't want to fix it. Maybe this whole thing is fundamentally flawed, and it'll be better to just start over from scratch. Like with 2.5 Men, it's like, oh, like if you think 2.5 Men is so bad, why don't you just write something better or something? It's like, yeah, but I don't want to write 2.5 Men because I don't like the premise or whatever it is. And similar to what you were saying with the like hip hop thing, it's like when people hear Drake or whatever, like this leads to another problem I have with things. It's like, there's this channel called Metalheads React or whatever,
Yeah, I've watched it. Yeah,
based on the premise that rock people generally don't like rap, I guess. Is that
yeah,
is that the meme that they're trying to play off of? Okay, so
yeah,
based off of that, they just be like, okay, normally we don't like this, and they end up not liking most of the stuff that they listen to. Um, but they're like working off this where they're like, oh, we're not gonna like this, but let's listen to it anyway. I mean, it seems like they're going in with an open mind, but it kind of is like most of the time they just end up reaffirming what they believed in the first place with like a slight like variation on it. They'd be like, "Oh, that one part was good, but yeah, I didn't like the rest of it or whatever." Does that make sense?
yeah. Well, okay, so I actually know exactly what you're talking about, and I fell down the whole like rock reacts type thing rabbit hole. And see, I'm curious what channel you're talking about because there's multiple ones. There's Rock Reacts, there's Codename Reaction, and I think there's Metalhead Reacts.
There's one with two guys with like really long hair. That's what I'm talking about. But that could be
Okay,
multiple channels. I don't know.
I
But
know what you're. I think I know
okay,
what you're talking about.
okay.
See, there's some that are like what you just said, but then there. Okay, so let me rewind back because there's this React channel called Lost in Vegas. Do you know this one?
No, tell
So,
me.
so it's two dudes who are into hip hop primarily, and they started reacting to rock and country and stuff. And along the way of them reacting to it, I think they were kind of fans of it before, but not really. But along their reaction journey, they actually became huge fans of rock and country music, and that inspired one channel, I think it was Metalhead Reacts, to start reacting to make their gimmick that, oh, in response to that, we'll react to hip hop music since we see how you can change your taste and go on a musical journey, sort of. And so I think that inspired a lot of rock react channels. But the interesting thing is, it's like one of these channels is literally called Rock Reacts, and they started off like not getting hip hop at all, but like now there's kind of no point to the channel, kind of, because they're just hip hop fans. Like
Yeah,
it's kind of weird.
I get what you're saying. I feel like a lot of the fascination with rock at the time is the same reason why people are fascinated with hip hop now. It's like when punk rock became this thing, it was like this fuck you to the system or whatever. And like okay, this is okay. This is Kaido deep dive time. So in the late to early 2010s, late 2000s, early 2010s, I was on a lot of rap forums where people like do like text verses and stuff like that. I don't know if you know about this. There's this whole culture of like people doing text verses
Yeah,
to beats on forums that are producers and like writers and stuff.
People do that on
And
YouTube channels or
yeah,
YouTube videos too.
there were most of the people who were new there were like, I thought I wanted to do rock, but then I learned about hip hop and now I want to do hip hop. So I feel like hip hop has kind of like taken over the like limelight of where rock used to be in maybe the 80s and stuff. 80s and 90s maybe, but 90s already hip hop was popular. Maybe like the 70s and 80s where rock used to be like this mainstream thing. And punk rock in especially was like this rebellion against the system, but now it's all like been replaced by hip hop.
Absolutely, 100%. What you just said there is true. But hold on, I think your time frame might be a little. So I think um, it depends. Like the '90s was when sort of hip hop and rock, like rock was sort of bigger, but hip hop was also big, and they were sort of separate. But then I feel like, and I feel like, uh, mm, I was let's see, there's Nirvana, and then you have like that grunge era, and then you have like the 2000s where it was like pop punk and emo and stuff, and that rock was still like really big but like slowly dying, and then like once you got into the like late 2000s 2010s, it's like yeah, hip hop is like actually just the mainstream thing, and rock is
Yeah,
basically like dead.
for sure. When like Drake became the biggest person
Yeah,
ever to do music, that's when hip hop became like fully established. Because in the '90s, I don't know about how rock, but I feel like the '90s there's this huge like CD music bubble. So pretty much everything was doing well back then, all music genres. But you're
yeah,
right.
you're
I think
right.
Nirvana was bigger than probably any hip hop act at the time. I can't really think of anyone bigger than Nirvana.
Yeah, dude, actually, when you know how people say when Tupac died, it opened up Tupac and Biggie died, it opened up a lot of lanes for artists to like it opened up it sort of it opened up a lot of avenues for like newer artists to come in and change the style. Like that was a
Hmm.
huge hit to the boom bap era. When Kurt Cobain died, that I feel like that's just like one of the biggest blows to rock music, like pretty much.
Yeah, grunge isn't really a thing anymore. Is there some like
Yeah.
post grunge, like cyber grunge or something that I need to know about?
Well, like, so the dude, you know, Dave Grohl from Nirvana. How big are you?
I have basically no knowledge about
Okay.
any rock ever.
All right. Well, so Dave Grohl was the drummer for Nirvana, and after I can't remember the time frame exactly, but this was in the 2000s. Dave Grohl became the front man of a band called the Foo Fighters, and
I've heard of
uh,
them.
yeah, they have this song called "The Pretender." You know that song. What if I say I'm not like the others? That you know.
Nothing. I grew up in Detroit listening to hip. I mean, they only had hip hop ever on the radio ever. Hip
Okay.
hop and jazz. That was it. I have no exposure to rock music in any capacity. So
Okay.
nothing you say is gonna make any sense.
Okay, well, the Foo Fighters came along, and it's like, dang it, I've kind of lost my point. But like
Okay.
that sort of post grunge stuff is sort of where, yeah, it was like, okay, we're holding on by a thread here. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Oh yeah, like people say rock is dead now and stuff, right?
Yeah, it
I
kind
don't,
of
I don't, I
is.
don't know if you watch Dead End Hip Hop. There's a guy on there, Mike Seatown.
Yeah, of
He's like
course.
he's
I love that in hip hop.
super into metal, and he
Yeah,
always says like, "Oh, rock is dead" or whatever. I guess he was into the punk scene and stuff when he was a kid. I don't know.
yeah. He's no, he's absolutely right. Like rock is. I mean, it's just, and if it okay, I mean, the stuff that's popping that's like guitar based is like I don't know how big you're into sad boy stuff, but it's like Kuko and like Steve Lacy. Like that's where guitar based instrumentation kind of lives, and like lo-fi hip hop, that kind of stuff. I feel like that's where it lives. But that's not even rock music, so yeah, it's dead.
There are people who object to like hip hop on this level of that it's too like postmodern and capitalist. What do you think of that like criticism? Because
Oh,
by definition, hip hop needs like a sample or some kind of beat to go off on top of, right? So it's like there's the people say that kind of thing is like the same thing that we were talking about earlier. For example, big example, love examples. Drake, one of his songs uses like a Whitney Houston vocal loop that's sped up as kind of like the instrumentation for one of the beats that he's on, right? Normally this is like typical hip hop, but then if you're like a rock person, you're like, yeah, but he didn't make anything original with that. He's just recycling old stuff and then adding his take on top of it. And how is that different from people recycling? I said this before, but I'll say it again now for the sake of the podcast. It's like everything after the 1980s that's Spider-Man related is just fan fiction because the original creators aren't involved. It's kind of like they're recycling things and adding things on top of it and just making it more and more like complicated. Like it's like if you have a machine and you keep adding legs, at some point it can't walk anymore. It's too many legs. Does that make sense?
Mm. Well, see, I think that's different than the movie thing because I think when people look at sampling, that's kind of what I was talking about earlier. When people look at sampling and they're like, "Oh, you're just taking someone else's music." Well, you're really not though. Like, I don't think you are because if you actually try to sample something, it's kind of hard like to match it to the beat and make it actually sound good. So like, I think sampling is just an art that people disrespect in and of itself. Like I don't see anything wrong with it. Like I think it's cool that people take other stuff like and like recontextualize it in that way because it's not like it's different than the movie thing because it's not like if Drake is making Whitney Houston Part 2 or Part 50 like they're making Star Wars Part a million. It's like he's taking a part of it's like it's all it would be analogous to if let's say I have let's say Stranger Things, they have a poster of the thing in the background. That's what it's sort of like to me, where it's like, or a Tarantino movie where you're taking these old ideas and you're making them something new out of it. That's what sampling is to me, you know?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I don't believe I don't. I like sampling. I'm just playing devil's advocate here. But in the thing that you said with Stranger Things, having a poster of the thing in the background, that's like a surface level like homage that they do. But the actual structure of the show itself and the way like the characters are done and stuff is basically just any '80s movie. So even though there is this like surface level like referencing, there is like content in the show that is just a rip off of an old one. Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
I will agree with you because it's like when Nancy and Steve, the two teenage characters, they're setting up bear traps. You know, teenage characters setting up traps for a monster. Nightmare on Elm Street, where the kid, I think Lucas is has a slingshot about to hit the monster. You know, it's hitting Pennywise the clown. It's like it. You know, I mean, there it E.T. You know, the girl
Yeah.
11 is basically E.T.
They find like yeah, basically yeah, ET.
Yeah,
There's even like a bike scene, right? Isn't there a bike scene?
yeah, you know, I was surprised. Yeah, if they would have done the 11 makes the bikes float, which she could do
Yeah, she
contextually,
could
she can.
do.
Yeah, if they would have done that, I would have been like, okay, like come on, yeah. But yeah,
I
Stranger
feel
Thing.
like I feel like the version of ET today that would actually make sense in this climate would be like the most boring movie ever. It'd just be like people texting back and forth about some weird thing they found in the woods. It wouldn't be fun at all. Like you said something about this. You're like the next version of Stranger Things is just going to be people on their phones or what did you say?
Well, I was like, imagine if Netflix updated Stranger Things to where in the modern era where they had their phones. Yeah,
Yeah,
it wouldn't work.
they feel like it being set in the 80s. Like you run into this a lot when you're writing something, because smartphones basically enable instant communication with anyone anywhere on the planet. It becomes really hard to build tension or have any kind of plot because it's like, wait, couldn't they just talk to their like parents or whatever and fix the situation right now, or couldn't they just call their friend and be like, hey, bring me this thing that I need when I'm fighting this monster? It completely ruins the tension of any scene when you can basically connect to anyone anywhere.
Yeah, you know what? I think we may have just tapped into something there. Maybe that's why all of these things are based on the 80s because like okay, hold on. Hold on. So like okay. So the smartphones are actually a huge game changer because if you have smartphones, it removes plot points from your
Yeah,
thing.
it
So
basically
it
removes entire plots that you can do. They just don't make
exactly.
sense anymore.
So maybe yeah, that's good. That's a good point. Like that is such a game changer. Because okay, you know the game Firewatch.
Where he's like
Okay,
talking to this lady on the
yeah,
whatever
yeah,
walkie-talkie.
you know where I'm going with this. If smartphones existed, that you couldn't have that intimate storyline. Like you couldn't do it.
Well, you could always just set it in a place where smartphones don't work. Like that's like a lot of the survival movies now take place in like the Arctic or whatever because there's
Yeah.
no cell phone signal over there. Like
Well, the
there were two specific movies, both with Mads Mikkelsen as the main character that came out last year, where he basically has to survive in the wilderness, the tundra or whatever. One is like a silent movie done by Mystery Guitar Man, and the other one is just like this Netflix piece of crap, as far as I can tell.
Mystery Guitar Man writes things now.
He wrote and directed a Hollywood movie with Mads Mikkelsen in it.
Huh? That's cool.
Yeah, it's called Arctic. Yeah, I hear it's actually really good. So you should probably if it's a silent movie. There's only like one line of dialogue in the whole thing or something, which
I
is
love
like
silent films.
yeah, and it's like Mads Mikkelsen trying to survive in the Arctic. That's like one of the only storylines that makes sense to set in the modern day. If like all these Marvel movies, I feel like if the superheroes had smartphones, they would do a lot better than when they don't, even though they have all this high technology. They just
Yeah,
aren't able to talk to people.
you don't see that many smartphones in Marvel movies, do you?
I guess it's just not fun to like show people smartphones because they ruin so many plots. Like if you acknowledge the existence of them, you have to basically treat them like they work like they do in real life.
You know what though? Um maybe there needs to be something done here because I feel like um well, I'm a technology sort of optimist person, so I always look at the bright side of technology, and I feel like maybe this will change when more zoomers grow up and start writing things, because I feel like with a more intimate understanding of this technology from a younger age, they will be able to write more complex stories that incorporate these technological advancements.
Yeah, I mean, you're probably right because if you think about the movies that do use smartphones well, they end up being like the focus of the story. Like there's this movie Eighth Grade last year that came from Bo Burnham.
I still need to watch
Yeah, I
it.
feel like you really like it. You should probably watch it.
I
It's
would
about
like
like
it.
being a middle schooler or whatever in the age of smartphones, where everybody's like just trying to get approval from people and all this. And the smartphone kind of ends up being like the focus of the story. Oh, weirdly, this ties in with oh god no. You haven't seen this movie, right? Okay, so there's like
What
a
movie? You
nerd
didn't say the movie.
Eighth Grade. The movie's Eighth Grade.
Oh, I thought you were talking about a different movie. No, I
No,
thought you were about to switch
there's like a
topics.
nerd character in this movie which I kind of have problems with. I'd be interested once you like see the movie, we could talk about this. But I'll
Okay.
just say that for now. There's a nerd character in this movie. But other than that, like the movie ends up just being about smartphones. Like horror movies, right? It's always about like teenagers and stuff, but how many horror movies do you see the protagonist like whip out a smartphone and be like, "Hey,
Yeah,
uh,
unless that's the gimmick, and that's usually horrible, like that Skype horror movie. You know what I'm talking about? The
wait,
Facebook
wait,
Skype
wait,
one?
wait, wait, wait. Oh, what's it called? Unfriended?
Unfriended? Yeah,
Is that what it's called? Okay.
yeah. Oh god.
Oh,
Did you see it mid 90s?
is that's on Netflix? Isn't that with the same kid from It? He's basically making a career off of just starring in
No, no,
revival
no,
like
no, no.
nostalgia movies.
I don't think so. No, that wasn't Finn Wolfhard. That was another no, no, that wasn't him.
I, that he looks exactly the same on the poster that
You cut
Netflix
out.
showed me.
I
Oh,
think
that
you
he
cut
looks
out.
exactly the same on the poster that Netflix had, the thumbnail. He looks exactly the same. I just assumed it was the same guy.
They're probably I mean, he kind of looks similar, but I it okay, it's a what it is it's a very it's directed by Jonah Hill, and it's a very what I liked, what drew me into it was his interviews, because he was talking about how it was very inspired by hip hop culture, and immediately I'm like, okay, I'm interested in this. So, um, but really, it's less focused on, well, it's focused on that, but it's more focused on skateboard culture too, which is also kind of interesting to me. And
Why did he
so
say hip hop culture then? Is he trying to bring in the kids? Like, I feel like skateboard culture has way more to do with rock than it has to do with hip hop. No,
Well, because the kid listens. No, yes, but also because well, the thing is, it has a lot of minority characters that listen to hip hop and also happen to skateboard. So the movie's sort of about uh, skateboarders are inherently sort of were skateboarding wasn't mainstream at this time. So
Yeah.
so skateboarders were sort of like the dregs of, I guess, like, oh, get off my stop skateboarding here, whatever. But this movie sort of shows uh sort of like black and Hispanic skateboarders who like were into like hip hop as well and stuff, and so they're even further outcasted. So this kid, the main character, he sort of he has an abusive older brother, and he sort of doesn't know where to go in life, and so he sort of falls into this like super outcast skateboarder sort of like hip hop type group. Basically, that's what it's about.
Oh, as soon as I heard Jonah Hill, I kind of just dismissed this movie. To be honest, maybe I should watch it now.
No,
Probably
no,
should.
that's the point he was trying to make, because on the interviews, people were like, he was like, yeah, people view me as the comedy guy, but throughout my whole career, I've actually been deeply interested in skateboarding and hip hop, and that's what this movie is about. And I wanted to make a movie that represents those two cultures, and because that's what he grew up with. Like, he was a huge like hip hop head, and he also skateboarded, and he was into like Supreme, like actually before it got like mainstream. Like, he was into all this stuff, and he saw this stuff in media not being represented right, and so he wanted to make a movie that represents it right. That basically
Yeah,
is
we
what.
are getting this new wave of like people. Like I feel like the Zoomers are growing up a little bit. Like Bo Burnham isn't that old. He's like 25 or something, 26.
Yeah,
He can't be that old. So I don't know. I mean, I like the movie mostly. Eighth grade. Maybe I should give this mid 90s a look.
you know,
I've only ever tried to skateboard once, and I fell off in the first 3 minutes, and I just returned the skateboard and never did it again.
you should have stuck with it. It's actually, there's a train. I'm sorry. Can you hear me?
This is okay. I mean, we had your drugged out sister before. Now we have a train. I mean, this is just like par for the course at this point.
It's fine. If you skateboarding, you don't have to do the tricks. Screw it. You don't have to do all that. It's just fun to ride on the board. That's what I always did. And once you learn to get on the board, like, you'll never unlearn it. Like, it's super. Like, you could just ride. It's fun.
Speaking of skateboards, I saw this guy riding a boosted board for the first time um, yesterday. Like he was just on like a normal sidewalk, and he couldn't ride the boosted board down like the ramp to the street. You know what I mean? So he just picked up the skateboard, walked across the street, put it back on the sidewalk. Are you catching this image I'm sending you?
Wait. No, no, no. That's actually what you're supposed to do. Wait, I'll defend him here. That's what you're supposed to do, right?
That's what you're supposed to do. But like this guy had on like sunglasses and a backwards hat. I was just like, uh, why can't you just ride it across the street? Just do the thing.
Well, like, okay. So the sidewalk has like is elevated, so you have to pick up the board to go across, right?
No, but it has one of those like little ramp things down to the street.
Oh,
You
so he
get what I'm
could have
saying?
just
Like,
skateboarded.
yeah, he could have just skateboarded, but I think he was scared that it was like downhill. Technically,
Yeah, maybe. Well, was there traffic?
no, it was like a empty back street. I
Okay,
just
then
thought it
never
was funny
mind.
that the boosted board is kind of like this badass thing that's being marketed nowadays. It's like go really fast with an
Yeah.
electric skateboard, and he had to pick up the skateboard to cross the street. I just thought that was funny.
Yeah, that makes no sense. Now that you see, what I was picturing was this dude had to cross traffic and there was sidewalks, but never mind.
Yeah, no, it's like an empty street, and I don't know. It seemed like he was trying to be cool because when he got on the other side of the street, he like looked really cool or like, was trying to look really cool and stuff. There's
Yeah.
no point to the story. Keep going with the skateboarding culture.
Okay. So, one of the things that just popped into my mind, this may be kind of a criticism of mid '90s, because what you just said, you were like, yeah, but isn't skateboarding usually like rock? Where does hip hop fall into this? Um, he could have mixed the hip hop culture in a little better, but I think because like, I mean, the main thing that's hip hop about it is that the kids listen to a lot of rap music, and there's a lot of rap music that plays in the movie, and the little kid, the main kid, he like sneaks into his brother's room and listens to the Wu Tang albums and stuff. Like, um, but yeah, it is sort of a weird mixture, but I think he did it fairly well. But there could have been a little bit more rap stuff in there. But like the thing is, it's like it's I guess it's mainly more about like minorities and stuff, because there's parts that take that one of the main plots is sort of like this kid. He comes from, I think he's like a mixed kid, and he's in like a troubled home, and he doesn't have a lot of money, and like his parents are abusive and all this stuff. So skateboarding is like one of the main places where he feels comfort, and he feels comfort in this group that they find. I guess that's what it's mainly about. It's about uh, people sort of coming from slightly different but mainly the same place, finding a tribe in skateboarding and finding a place of comfort. It's really kind of it's a pretty beautiful sort of message, but it's also really raw. Like they curse a lot and they don't treat women well and they say a bunch of homophobic and racist things. So it's
Which I
very
mean,
raw.
if you went to school in the late '90s, early 2000s, you know that's how school was like.
Yeah,
Everyone
yeah,
just
no,
did that.
exactly.
Uh,
That's why it's good because it's a period piece. It's raw. Like they're very homophobic. The cops are kind of racist. It's like they make fun of race. They make fun of women. They make fun of you know sexuality and all this stuff. Like it's very raw, but it's very good. It's very well written. It's good.
do you think that I kind of want to like turn into a 9 year old again just to see how things are different now? Because like how different can things actually be, right? Is
Not
all this, is it just like I feel like a lot of people are saying that it's very different now, but how different is it actually? Because at the time, even then, it was like people were saying like, oh, you know, bullying is bad and don't do bullying and all that stuff. But bullying was like huge back then because that's how you had all these like school shooters in the late '90s or whatever. It's because there's so much bullying.
okay. You cut out there, and all of a sudden I hear school shooter. That was a huge jump.
Okay. Oh,
Say that
we
again.
might as well just skip that. Was that what I was
No,
trying to
no,
say?
no,
Is
no,
like,
no, 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 no,
you
no,
know
no.
how
Hold on.
people are
Yeah,
trying
say
to
it
say
again.
like now they're not homophobic or whatever, and it's just kind of accepted now if you're gay or whatever. But then back then people were saying like, you know, you shouldn't bully people, but there was a ton of bullying that went on at the time. So I'm wondering if it's kind of hypocritical in that sense, kind of like how it was in the past when people were saying don't bully. Like, is that how it is now, where they're not actually doing that in the schools? It's just the perception from the outside.
Okay, well, this is hard. This is a hard thing to talk about, kind of, because this is gonna. You probably know what I'm about to say, but it all depends on your area and it all depends on your school, right? But so I come from the South, and let me tell you, the year is 2019, but there's a lot of like yeah, it's what you see on the internet is not what is down here. Trust me, it's very non PC. Like the like nobody is politically correct. They're not trying to be really. I mean, like uh, I don't know if I want to say like there's a ton of. I mean, people aren't racist, but it's like well, people are, but the younger generation, I should say, isn't racist, but they are not afraid to like make fun of races and they're pretty a lot of them are kind of homophobic. Like it's not super progressive everywhere like the internet will have you, it's the real world. I mean, like I don't know. But
Yeah, but then there are places where that is the case. Like where I live
yeah.
is
Yeah, it's
extremely progressive, and even if you're trans and you're walking down the street, nobody's gonna say anything because like it's not worth commenting on. But I feel like if that were
exactly.
to happen in a different people, they would get like beat up or whatever.
No, no, no. Well, what I was about to say with that is even though even I feel like even the most non-progressive areas have progressed. That's what I'm trying to say. So it's like,
Yeah, for sure.
yeah,
There's been
that's what I'm.
some movement, but I feel like if you, I mean, no place is going to be the same as every other place. But like
Yeah,
where I went to school in, like when I went to elementary school in Michigan, things were not like all that much better than what you're describing now. Like there were a lot of new immigrants to that area at the time, and they were not treated all that well, from what I recall. I also lived in South Carolina briefly, and that was way worse.
oh
So
yeah,
I get what you're talking about.
yeah. Well, I guess I guess like because even in like deep south, like I don't know what it's like in Alabama or Mississippi. It's probably way worse
It's
there.
okay. No, you're probably as deep south as it gets. Let's be honest. Like
Well,
you,
yeah. Well,
not to
no.
dox you or anything, but you're let's just say in the '60s where you lived, would not be a place that many people from the north would visit for its tolerance.
Yeah, exactly. But like even I feel like like there's a lot of like gay people and stuff that are at my work, and like nobody bugs them like that. Like it's I mean there's a like we've progressed a lot in terms of like how we treat marginalized people, but it's also like it's definitely, if you live in the deep south, it is not going to be like politically correct at the same time. Like you know what I mean. I guess
Yeah,
that's what I'm
this
trying to
is
say.
okay. Here we go. This is rant number 42 of this podcast. Here, there's this thing like I think the term politically correct should has to be like just completely just removed from the from the like human dictionary because it's the things that it implies are so dumb. Like one of the people who use the like not wanting to be politically correct as like the basis of like a policy decision is Vladimir Putin, who says he's saying that like he basically equates pedophiles and homosexuals, and he's like, I don't want to be politically correct and call them homosexuals. Does that make sense? Like I feel like it's just something you say when you're trying to say something that maybe you probably shouldn't say, and you or and then other senses it's like, oh I'm not trying to be politically correct or anything, but there's something more than just political correctness. It's like if you there are certain words you can't call other people, and that's not political correctness. It's just being not a douchebag. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I get what you're saying. So the term is very broad and it can be used in weird like ways. I get what you're saying. Yeah, because it's like you could be yeah. Because when people talk about PC culture, it's a lot of times if you it depends on who you're talking to. Because if you hear like let's say someone on the right, like a right YouTuber, go, yeah, politically correct culture. What they're really doing is like they're umbrella terming. They're like putting all like progressive thought and idea under this blanket of, oh yeah, that's just PC stuff because they don't like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like one of the people that they use to defend their like being PC is like the stand-up comedian George Carlin. They're like, oh, he said you should say whatever you want, but that's not actually what he was saying. He was specifically rebelling against the ban on certain words in media, and he was like rebelling against the establishment. But if you're now using him to defend you, like bashing a community that's trying to establish themselves in the world and like gain rights that they only in the past decade have even gotten, how is that you rebelling against the establishment? Isn't that you defending the, tried and true order of the world? Like, I feel like they're corrupting the spirit of what he was trying to do with this.
Yeah, I don't know much about George Carlin, but I understand what you're saying. It's like they yeah, I understand. Yeah. I
Like
yeah.
like you said, like the internet would have you believe the world is progressive. So this I think in particular is an internet problem. They're like they all they see on the internet is like this progressive stuff. So they're like trying to they think they're standing up to something by speaking out against the progressive stuff, but they don't realize that the entire world is against this usually.
Yeah,
Like the
yeah.
places where yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I agree. Because that's a great point. Because it's like they're taking, and a lot of people who like are progressive online are kind of the minority. So what they're doing is they're making the minority look like the majority, and then they're like, oh yeah, I'm rebelling against the majority, when really they're just trying to oppress the minority.
Yeah, I feel like
Yeah,
it's like four boats, like four flip floppity boats on top of each other, and they're like looking up, but they're actually looking down. That was a weird comparison, but yeah, it's like just because you see something in one place doesn't mean it's that way everywhere. Like for example, like I said, I live in the super progressive city, but if you drive like 200 kilometers out into the Canadian countryside, I'm sure things would look very different. But if you just said like, oh, because everyone here is super progressive, the rebellious thing for me to do would be to be super conservative. But you're
mm-hmm.
just basing that on like a local poll. You're not really looking at the big picture of things. Whenever someone says that, I always just end up thinking this.
Yeah. Okay, so I don't know. I guess this isn't controversial at this point because the meme is kind of dead, but like sort of a way to sort of I guess illustrate what we're saying is with the whole like Black Lives Matter thing, kind of, because um like so people the movement started, and then it's like basically white people started going, oh, all lives matter, you know, and it's
Yeah.
like okay, so it's like so like they were trying to
There's
say
so many beautiful levels of irony in this whole fight that it's like when they want to pass something in Congress which is particularly bad, they call it something like the American Freedom Act or something. Like the one where they spy on everyone after 9/11 was called the Patriot Act. There's nothing
oh
really
yeah, yeah,
patriotic about listening in to 140 million people's conversations. They just
yeah.
call it whatever, but it actually represents something else entirely. Yeah, go ahead.
SOPA, Stop Online Piracy Act. Yeah,
Yeah, but actually it's like just defending copyright owners. Like it's defending vested interests basically. It's not really stopping anything. It's like protecting people who already have too much money. Yeah, go ahead.
yeah.
You were saying something.
So like the whole point of the sort of I feel like the Black Lives Matter sort of movement was blown out of proportion in a way because people, the media, I guess, yeah, I guess like white America basically, pretty much just like painted it as like oh like they basically just painted it like all these people were just like rioting in the streets, but like in actuality, like if you actually like pull up the statistics, right, there is like there was like the Black Lives Matter like marches or whatever that caused violence were actually in the minority of the marches. Like most of them were pretty peaceful. Most of them were just trying to make a point. Like it's a point that's pretty important, pretty poignant. But then like people who are against that try to say, oh, all lives matter. Like and they're trying to and which is there's no point in saying that. The only purpose of that movement is just a counter movement to silence the original movement. So it's like
Yeah.
you're just
It's
being
like to
racist.
invalidate. It's to invalidate something
Yeah,
which has historically never received validation. It's like we
exactly.
you don't
Yeah,
even have to say this because your government is already doing this. They're doing it for you. There's no point in you protesting to show this. Whereas the people
exactly.
who are on the other side are like actually trying to get something done that has never been done before. Like just having police people treat people like minorities like normal people instead of like harassing them for no reason or like violently murdering them in the streets or whatever. We might have gone too far into this rabbit hole. What do you
No, I
think?
want to go further because I
Okay.
because I think that it's a so I sort of see the I'm generally a person who just thinks, you know, cultural differences kind of don't matter. Like generally people are kind of all the same. Like you can get along with people, but you're never going to get any progress done in the world acknowledge that if you don't acknowledge that there's a problem happening when there's a problem happening. And so when you try to silence it, so when like the majority of people are trying to silence something, like they're trying to silence a movement like that, you're just basically saying you don't want progress or relationships between people to change, and you just want to maintain a status quo. But you're doing it under the veil of I am
Standing up to something. Yeah.
standing up. Yeah, yeah, you're doing it under that veil, and it's like, you know, society can always improve in ways, and you're never going to improve it unless you point out where there's a problem or where there's, you know, something, you know.
Yeah, and we've gotten to the point where like even peaceful protest is kind of not even effective anymore as a tool to stand up to governments and things like that. Because like the first like nonviolent huge protest that caused like very significant change was like in the 1900s, early 1900s, when like Mahatma Gandhi like tried to free India, and like they didn't even know what to do when people were nonviolently protesting. But at this point, we have like people infiltrating organizations to turn nonviolent protests violent, and like falsely, like if one person hits one person, they say that the whole protest was like a riot or something. I feel like we've gotten to the point where the system has adapted sufficiently to nonviolent protest that it doesn't really have the same level of efficacy that it used to way back in the day, like in the 60s and whatnot, when they had like boycotts and stuff like that. What do you say?
Hmm. Well, I don't see. Here's where maybe we did go too far down the
I think we went
rabbit
too
hole
far because I feel
because
like
wait.
I'm on the verge of advocating for violent rioting in the streets, which
Well,
I'm
I
not
don't.
saying you should do.
Well, I don't know. Well, at the same time, I kind of agree with you. I don't want to go full Ben Saint and say that we should have a violent, like communist revolution or whatever. But like, I don't know what you're saying. Kind of makes sense. Like, there peaceful protests kind of don't work. I don't know.
Yeah, this goes back to the whole fixing things from the inside. Like there's people who initially were protesters who are now part of the system, and they're familiar with how protests work, and now they know how to like defeat it, the point of it. This is like the system. It's like an immune response, right? It like
Yeah.
adopts. It finds out how to respond to things, and then those things aren't effective anymore. Like you talked about pop punk in the 90s or 2000s, I forget when you said, but it's like punk initially was like a rebellion against the mainstream, and then it got adopted to become like this commercial endeavor as part of the mainstream.
Hmm.
And now we have pop rap. Like rap initially was like it takes a nation of a million and like Public Enemy, Chuck D, all this stuff
Yeah.
that was
Wu
like
Tang.
against the system. Yeah. And then now it's like, pop rap, Migos. I don't really know any other pop rappers. I guess Drake to some extent. Um,
Uh. Yeah.
where you have like they're not saying anything about the system anymore, and that's like one of the more common complaints that people have about old school hip hop fans have about hip hop now is like, oh, these kids don't talk about anything, but then they don't realize that the genre's changed now. It's all about it's not anymore about pro like rebelling against things. It's now more about getting the money. So of course, that's the message is going to change. Like you can't sell 20 million records sustainably over 20 years if you're being like, fuck the system or whatever. It's like a short-lived because eventually either something happens to you, like they put a stop to you, or you just get enough money and you change, so that message no longer represents your worldview. Does that make sense?
Yeah. One of the things that sort of alleviates this concern though is so you have SoundCloud rap, which is um sort of a different game, sort of, because a lot of SoundCloud artists, like, all right, let me just say, let's say Ski Master Slump God, XXX Tentacion,
Okay, okay, okay.
XXX Tentacion, Puya, Suicide Boys, uh,
Like
yeah,
Suicide Boys, their songs are like very rock inspired, right? There's a lot of rock stuff in there.
yeah. Well, what I'm meaning to say is like though these artists don't really make songs about any establishment or like getting money. Well, kind of, but not really. Like, okay, so Ski Mask mainly just like makes funny songs that are like have references and or just like hard hitting bangers. Some well, he has a lot of emotional songs, mainly about ex dying and stuff like that. But well, not directly about that, but clearly inspired by that. But basically, what I mean to say is like a lot of SoundCloud artists sort of talk more about their feelings or references to what they love or just like just really general like funny like hip hop tropes. So I feel like what's sort of emerging is in the same way that not all rock music is the same. It has subgenres. Subgenres are kind of emerging in hip hop. I think is what's happening. So
Yeah.
which is what happens as a genre broadens because hip hop can't just be about rebelling against the system because uh, hip hop sort of is the
Is the
system.
system. Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like the ability of the system to incorporate parts, like okay, so have you seen Psychopaths?
No.
So in Psychopath, okay. Are you? It's okay. You know what? I'm just gonna go for it. So in
Okay.
Psychopaths, there's like this system of that rules the world is made up of brains of people
The
who don't fit into the world.
the civil system, right?
Yeah, the Sybil system is
Yeah.
actually a system of brains. Like it's just brains in jars, but the
Okay.
brains are those of people who don't fit into the system. Does that make sense? So it's
Don't
like
fit into
criminally.
society.
Yeah, no, like they
Okay.
don't. They work outside the system. Like they literally, their mood can't be judged or whatever. They can't be judged at all because they're criminally psychotic or something.
Oh, okay. I
That's how it's
see.
presented. Because the movie's about criminal like justice, right? So they look at it from a lens of criminal justice. So they're talking about like brains that can't be judged by the civil system are what comprises the civil system. In that sense, I feel like when the system has learned how to inoculate itself against outside agents by just incorporating them into it. Like for example, even if you did have a rap group or whatever that was like really into telling people about police violence and stuff like that, when you offer them a $30 million record deal, which is not something that they would have done in the 50s, they would have just gone on like a moral panic about it and been like, hey, this is not good. Don't let your kids listen to this or whatever. Now
Yeah.
it's like, just give them a record deal and they'll do it to themselves. Like they'll self censor to make their sales more important. Like they've reframed the objective of these artists from doing what they were doing before to just getting more money. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's actually kind of crazy to think about. It's like, yeah, they kind of will just they kind of will just do it to themselves, won't they?
Yeah, and this is happening in YouTube en masse. It's like in the beginning of YouTube, like people used to make just whatever they felt like, but now it's like you have to tailor what you make to suit the algorithm and everything. And by reframing the point of the game to being about getting a job as a YouTuber and like playing the algorithm and like getting the most views and watch time, they've kind of just naturally incentivized making content that does that. So now
Mm-hmm.
they don't even have to tell people like, oh, do this, do that. People are going to do it themselves. And I really feel like that's what's happening in society at large is like the system is has learned how to, instead of forcing people to do things, they just give them what they want in a way that makes it so that they can't continue to disrupt the system further, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think what you're saying is really yeah, I agree. And I just thought of an example sort of that shows this. Do you know who Black Youngsta is?
No, I have no idea.
He's a rapper. Okay, I actually haven't heard his music, but I watch Adam 22. Do you know that? No Jumper. He interviews a bunch of rappers. You know
Just
him?
assume I don't know anyone.
Okay, so he interviews a bunch of mainly SoundCloud rappers. I don't know. Are you familiar with that world at all?
The only SoundCloud rap I listened to was when Chance used to put SoundCloud up, or when he used to support SoundCloud. Now he's kind of abandoned it, I think.
Okay, sorry for the train, by
Which
the
is
way.
it's funny because I actually used to put tracks on SoundCloud way back in the day.
Sweet. Anyways, so um, Black Youngster was talking about in this interview how he started off in the rap game with this huge aggressive like rebellious sort of like attitude, like he was this tough gangster, right? But then somewhere along the way, he realized he started getting a little bit of popularity, but then he realized, wait a minute, one day, in order to have longevity, I'm going to get older, and if I get rich, this content is no longer like this living in the hood tough lifestyle content will not apply to me. So early on, he was talking about how he changed his content to reflect. It was still, still like very much rooted in what he was originally doing, but he put a more comedic spin on it to show off. And in interviews and stuff, he showed off his more funny side. Like he wanted to be like happier and goofier and funnier, because to show who he really is, because he realized that this rebellious, angsty, like I'm a gangster type style will not apply to me if I blow up and get rich, which he has done. So changing his style to be more comedic is how he has longevity. So you kind of have to do that, because if you get mainstream and your content is focused on not being mainstream, like, it's not going to work anymore. You can't, Jay-Z can't rap about, uh, the stuff that he raps about. That's why he's decided to go more introspective on 444. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
same with,
I
yeah,
was actually going to bring up the example of Jay-Z when you started
yeah,
talking about this. I was like, I think that like effectively shows the difference between things that were happening in the late 90s and things that are happening now. Like we moved into this like late postmodernism world where we're consciously aware of things like this. Like when Jay-Z was rapping, when his first album like Reasonable Doubt and stuff like that, he was actually talking about the same stuff that you said this guy was talking about, which is like
hmm,
living in the hood, and like he actually used to be a drug dealer.
yeah,
And he was talking about that. But over the years, as he got money, his content changed. But I don't. He wasn't doing it like consciously. He was doing it like just because his content changed. Like Nas, when he made Illmatic, is probably one of the grittiest rap albums of all time. And
yeah,
then in 2012, he made an album called Life's Good. Like you can't change much more than that. But I feel like that's the difference between then and now. Is like now people are starting that way from the jump. Like even if they are living in the hood, they're going straight to point B and starting off at 100, where Nas was in 2012, instead of actually doing the stuff that Nas was doing in 1993 or whatever. We've gotten so aware of our position in history and like this meta awareness of what our work is going to be perceived as in the future, that we're not even focused on the type of message that we want to send. We're focused on what the message that will be the most successful or the most well received in like 30 years or whatever. Does that make sense?
yeah. What? And I wanna say though that maybe in the case of a lot of these rappers, that is a good, sort of a good thing, because like, I mean, you don't want to be like in the hood. Like you want to focus on getting out, kind of. So maybe in that case, it's sort of a good thing. But at the same time, you ruin the authenticity and content, kind of. I don't know. It's
Yeah, and
interesting.
but here's my here's this is where if Ben Saint was a philosophy student, he would say, um, it would be like, wait, isn't Ben Saint a philosophy student? No, I think he's physics, right? I forget
I
what he
don't
did.
know.
Anyway, this is where he would say like, yeah, but by focusing on like achieving material success, you've moved yourself into like this capitalist framework where the success that you have is like this purely like money based success, whereas before you could have had success in different scenarios. Like Illmatic was one of the grittiest hip hop albums ever made, right? And it's like portraying like this rough reality where like babies are sitting on stoops with like drugs in their hand or whatever. Like Dave Chappelle has a comedy bit about how he bought crack from a baby. Like he could have just said like, oh, I slipped on the floor of my mansion and like fell or whatever, but like he was trying to make a point about like raising awareness of like this whole thing that's happening in parts of the country that people don't really see. And I feel like that's how like the hip hop started too. It was like I want people to know about what's happening over in general. I feel like that happens these days too. People rap a lot about living in the hood and like the realities that they see there. And I think that does achieve success in ways other than material. Like Migos, the only thing they're going to do with their music is get people to party in the club or whatever.
Yeah, but
But
is
if you're
it?
doing more like if you're doing something that has a point other than just trying to make money, then you're serving people other than yourself. No.
Okay, I don't. You see, you bring up Nas' Illmatic, but I don't know if, okay, visualizing the realism of life in actuality. Fuck who's the baddest. A person's status depends on salary, and my mentality is money orientated. I'm destined to live the dream for all my peeps who never made it. Like, the first line of the album is about, like, I don't know,
Yeah,
like it's
but it's
about
it's
like
it's
material things.
aspirational. It's
But
aspirational, but it talks
yeah,
about life in the hood. It's not. It's talking about. He's not talking about how many Lamborghinis he has. He's talking about how many Lamborghinis he wants to get.
okay,
Right? He's portraying.
so that's the difference. He's portraying what he. I'm sorry, I think I. He's portraying what he wants to have. I guess is the difference.
Well, I
Like,
mean, he also talks about like the stuff that he's seen happen in his neighborhood, right? Which you don't really see him do anymore. He's not talking about that stuff anymore. He's talking about how he wanted to make it, how he's made it, which I guess is a thing. But like now, people who are trying to chase that same dream just want to be successful. They don't really have any other goal. Other like when he made that album, the point was to showcase the mentality of someone who lives in this neighborhood. and also to like show the events of what happens there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but it's a very hopeful album, though. I guess is what I'm trying to say. At the same
Yeah.
time,
Well, I mean, all we have is hope, right? The proletariat, all we have is
yeah.
hope.
I guess I guess the problem is you just can't do that style of hip hop anymore and have it. I mean, it's just not, or you can, but it's just not going to be the same because we have social media. You can create like you're always like all the content is just going to be focused on achieving the material or just I don't know. It's like you just can't have that raw grittiness anymore in this era. I feel like I don't
Yeah,
know.
I feel like a good example of this is like Kendrick Lamar. In Good Kid, Mad City, he's talking about the stuff that happens in his hometown of Compton. But when he moved to Damn, like the journey became much more introspective and personal because
Yeah.
he can't really talk about like he's super rich now. What is
Hmm.
he going to talk about now? Like he doesn't live in that neighborhood anymore. So his like and he's one of the people I feel like who's dealt with this transition like better than most people do cuz most people they make a life's good or whatever. They don't make a damn, you know. He's talking about
Yeah.
like this personal journey that he's on more so than a societal one. And I feel like that's one way you can go, but personal, I guess. Like I'm not trying to shit on Damn. I like Damn. I do think he's trying to help people who are depressed and things like that, which actually, yeah, he's doing a really good job of. Um, but I feel like, well, that's not entirely true because to Pimp a Butterfly was also in that same vein. But I feel like the transition from To Pimp a Butterfly to Damn was when he got super super big. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I actually liked Damn when it first came out, but I actually don't anymore. It's
Yeah,
too.
I had the same. I have the same feeling actually.
Yeah. I
I
don't.
liked it a lot when it came out. I was like, this is my favorite Kendrick album. And then like 6 months later, I was like, some of these songs are a bit not so good.
But in all the interviews, he says that this was his best one, and I think that reflects what we're saying because in his mind, it's like, well, I told my story sort of, so this is the best album that I could make about myself now. Like,
Yeah, and Chance, all music artists say the same thing. Like Chance the Rapper said the same thing about Three, or like whatever's the coloring book or
Coloring
whatever.
Book. Yeah.
He said that was the best one that we've done. He's like, oh, I made so many compromises on acid rap, but everyone loves acid rap, and I guess some people like coloring book too. But most of like the old head fans don't really like coloring book,
Yeah, I don't like
and they
Coloring
like
Book.
acid rap better. And I feel like even like old acts, like I don't know, Metallica and things like that, they like their new album more than their old stuff, even though people only want to hear the old stuff.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. Metallica. Yeah. Yeah. Very much so. Metallica's very. Well, there's a bunch of Metallica has their. They don't know what they're doing anymore. They haven't for years. Because I mean, I'm sure you've heard the famous case where they sued a 13-year-old boy for pirating their songs. Like,
Yeah, exactly. It's like
yeah,
wait a minute. Isn't
yeah,
it the most Metallica thing to do to pirate this album? Like, why are you suing this guy?
yeah. Dude, Metallica hasn't. They haven't been relevant or good in forever. They should have just died off as a band. To be honest. Yeah.
Yeah, but they're being propped up because they made something, and copyright law is so prohibitive that they get to own this for like 150 years or who knows what.
Yeah. I mean, which I mean, there was some fans that liked the latest one that kind of liked it, but like it just wasn't as good. Like it's not as good as like the Black Album or Ride the Light. Whatever. We can get off this subject.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Okay.
but
Should we wrap up this podcast? I feel like we've gone so deep now that if we go any deeper, we'll just come out on the other side of the earth and be like emerging into daylight where we were dark for like the past 110 minutes.
I had another topic, but I don't know if you want to do it.
Go ahead.
But
Go ahead. Do
well,
this. Let's just do
if
it.
you want to wrap it up, I'm trying to think of what the topic was because I forgot.
Okay.
Now.
If you can't remember the topic, I think that's like a clue that we need to wrap this up.
But people are gonna be mad because I said I would do. We'll get to that later on something, but I forgot.
But you should have written it down because now there's no way to get it back. You know, it's
Oh,
gone now.
it was about the Netflix Evangelion thing, I think, but I don't care about that anymore.
Yeah, I feel like this is like what I'm saying. We're gonna emerge on daylight on the other side because we've been tunneling to the earth for the past hour and a half. I don't know when we got into this, but I feel like it's been forever.
Okay, well,
Okay,
all
let's
right.
save it. Let's save it for next episode. How about that?
Save it for next episode. This has been the Coast Town Podcast.
And as always, we're stuck on an island. Please send help.
Subscribe to Gigabytes.